This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about we can't have a class caste based society and democracy, part 2. There is one thing we truly miss, which is intellectual honesty. Again, of course, there are many people that try to be intellectually honest. Of course, there are people that care about truth and trust and justice and equality and compassion and empathy and many other things, many other values and principles that are relevant for a true ecological holistic civilization and an economy, a social and ecological political economy. But it's not only political honesty. It's the problem of cognitive dissonance, which is prevalent. We try to make to navigate life and to navigate our reality, the reality of our societies, resorting to different system of beliefs with principles and values, because we do not really analyze reality as if society, all the different systems or subsystems that make up society are not all of them part, like our system, like the systems of our body, are all part of an organism. And that organism, that living organism, is society. Is the society is the complex system that we call societies, and we need to understand it as a unity, as a unit, as a complex holistic system. That the systems that, for the purpose of analysis, we can analyze the different systems. So we can analyze the economic system, the political, but in order to understand what the society is and what it's supposed to, how it is supposed to be organized and function, we need to see it as holistically, as a system where all the subsystems are supposed to work in unison to make it work, function as good as possible. This this is one of the problems why we are so vulnerable to be manipulated, because we do not have the way we approach reality. It is compartmented, and we cannot understand, and that we kind of to believe that things are separated. I mean, as if the economy has nothing to do with society, politics is one thing, economy is the other, and the economy needs to have these rules, and these rules might not, even when the rules of the economy are are dysfunctional, and which is the case, the present case. Because why are they dysfunctional? Because exactly they are tailored. Even the mathematical models, which are supposed to give some credibility, some scientific credibility to the profession, to the economics profession, are tailored not even to explain the economy, but to make the economy function, to meet these models. Okay, which is the opposite. The models are not done to explain the reality and to make the economy more functional. It is exactly the opposite. And why? Because the purpose of the profession is not to serve the economy, is to serve those who benefit with the existing system. The economy can be organized in many different ways and can serve many purposes. It is us, and that's why, again, we cannot have democracy if us. So we can organize the society, the economy, culture in the way we want. That's why we need to think. I mean, at least for those who who understand that this is not functioning for them, and even for those who believe in the system, but actually are starting to, maybe this is not, I mean, there are many people that they are true believers in the capitalist system because of whatever reason. That's not the point right now to discuss it. What is important is that many of them, they can also see the contradictions. They can perceive, they can understand the contradictions, they can understand that there are things that are really wrong with the existing system, and the disparities, and the growth of economic inequality, and all these. But there are many people then they believe that's the problem. Why there is so the problem of tribalization and division. It's because many people don't see that they are being manipulated when they are talking about technocracy. When they are always, especially those who firmly believe that all is wrong. We have a capitalist system. It is the prevalent system. That is the system that all the institutions, international institutions, organizations, banking system, financial system, economic system, and everything that is that exists in forms the structure that our world works are capitalist. Okay, but we are supposed to believe that everything that's wrong is because of the leftists. That there is only a few countries in the world that actually have left governments. Because this is, in my opinion, this is a very important point. Because the people, many people that believe they are progressives, and they probably are progressive, their ideas are progressive, they still believe that the social democratic parties and the center left is the left, and therefore the right and the right wing parties, far right, center right, Christian right, populist right, nationalist right, fascist right, all of them together with the liberals and the center left, all of them are fervent believers in the capitalist system, which means that those parties that now try to profit as being a system, as being as the ones that are going to clean the system, we should ask which system are they going to clean. When was there was a time when the capitalist system served the public interest, and it's always when it is not a capitalist system, exactly capitalist in the so-called free market version, but a mixed economy. It has always been. It is happening in China right now, and that's why it works. It has been working very well for China, because it's a mixed economy, and it has worked for America as well as it did for the post-war era in the European continent. Okay, it was because it was not real capitalism. It was not real free market capitalism. It's not these neoliberal ideas of deregulation and free capital flows, and all these the privatization and demonization of the state and everything else. Okay, so this is why the people that do not understand that the moment the capitalism becomes liberalized, which means becomes more free, the laws are lifted, and the financialized version of capitalism becomes more profitable than to produce goods and services. We are doomed. The many, we are doomed. This is why we cannot really believe in a system that is for a while, is very beneficial. It can be beneficial for a while, but then it becomes predatory of its own economy, because it needs to eat, to make the real economy to suffer in order to keep growing the profits. We need a cultural revolution. Without a cultural revolution, we are not, and that has to be, in order to become a collective a process and a part of a movement, a larger political movement. It needs to be a process, individual, a conscious transformative process at the individual level. But by being at the individual level, of course, we need to stimulate each other. That's why it's important that we have to discuss things, because then we have the support, that support that is required, the trust that we don't have, but we do need it. Because the system itself lives out of it, lives. One of the features of the system is exactly to make us this pursuit of self-interest, to individualize and atomize us or tribalize us around the wrong issues in order to make us more vulnerable. It is incredible, but it is how. The thing is, am I saying things that most people don't know? No. But that's exactly the issue. That's why I'm always trying to emphasize that knowing is not enough. Intellectually, knowing something intellectually, being able to put two and two together is not enough. It's only when that knowledge becomes a part of that transformative conscious process, which means that only when the dominant narratives, the principles and values that control our minds, our subconscious minds, that are responsible for shaping who we are, what we believe, how we perceive the world, how we build relations, how we understand everything becomes to be deconstructed, and new system of values and principles and narratives start to replace it. Not because we get rid of the old one, but because the new one starts to become more proeminent, start to be the one that dictates, quote unquote, the dominant system or systems, the dominant part of the dominant narratives, because we need these narratives to operate, these belief systems to operate, ideas, values, norms, principles, rules. This is essential for us to function as human beings. Therefore, that's why it's not only important that we need. It's only when we start to recognize how it affects our lives, how it limits our analysis, how it allows us to serve a system and to be used, exploited, and many other things. That's when the knowledge that we already had becomes part of a conscious transformative process. Until then, is just kind of that knowledge. It's baggage, it's luggage that we have, but it doesn't really influence our behavior. It doesn't change our habits. It doesn't change our views of the worldviews and everything else. Don't we know this as well? Yes, we do. But again, it's the same process. You know, that's the same. That's the same. That goes with the other things in our life. For example, if don't we know that smoking is bad for us, or drinking too much alcohol? Does it change our habits? No, it only changes when it becomes a process of conscious transformation. Again, it's only when we take it seriously and then we think that, okay, I'm going to, this matters to me, therefore I'm going to do it in a serious manner. It has always, and it needs to be always conscious. It's always part of a conscious process. It's not just a knowledge process, the knowledge acquisition. It is a conscious process. That's why I emphasize the need for that to it and that. And the reason why is important that we share with each other and we discuss the problems, and we become, that we don't feel lonely, or that we ruminate things alone, that we have people that want to discuss it, and we together can grow our strength. The individual strength grows with the feeling of that the knowing of not being alone, which is it's about trust, it's about sharing, it's about cooperation, synergies, solidarity. That is needed for social beings to feel, even to feel alive, to build meaning and have a purpose. Not only the projects which are always economic with the pursuit of self-interest, which is this individualistic, even when it's with a team group or a group, it is an individual. These are individualistic projects. You know what I mean? They are not. They are always for the purpose of winning, or economically, or be the best, or be the ones that discover something, or just always with the objective to have profits out of it. It's never. It's just, and just we take it as granted. We take it as if there is no other forms of motivating people, of organizing a society, but like that. I mean, and it's not true that we need, of course, when you create a system, that's why class consciousness, the understanding that class, we cannot have a class or caste-based society and democracy, because the idea, we are always thinking about accumulating. I mean, let me put it in another way. Since a caste and class-based society with a more or less rigid hierarchy, with the accumulation of wealth and power at the top, we have a system based on manufacture scarcity. which means that we are intentionally made feel that things cannot be for free. That we need to fight, to compete, to eliminate the competition, not only to compete, which is not always it's part of nature, it's part of life. Okay? It's to eliminate competition. Because in the end, the capitalist system doesn't like competition, likes monopolies. And that's the capitalists themselves admitting it. Okay? Which is obvious. Competition is a nuisance. It's annoying. So this is why this system it humanizes us. It doesn't matter how sophisticated we are or become, how technologically and scientifically advanced we are, and good manners and so many other things that they are good to a certain extent. Unfortunately, we live extremes in the sense that it is lots of superfluous stuff, and that is not needed, and idiotic professions and tasks and roles, the bullshit jobs and all these things that are not required at all in us to have a good life. And a good life is basically a life with true joy, everyday life with true joy, not happiness. Many people talk about happiness, which is even happiness index, but which is the most happy society in the world. It's supposed to be the Finnish people, the Finland, but it's that important, of course, and that's why equality matters. It seems that at least equality is not unequal societies don't make people happy, that's for sure. But my point with joy is because joy is what you feel when your life, your daily life, your relations, your work is meaningful, that is meaningful even, and that's why I talk about why it's important, even when you have a job, for example, that you have a task that you don't like, but you know that the system itself not only respects but makes sure that if what you have to do is monotonous or dangerous, or it's not that you should work less hours and be better rewarded to do it voluntarily, but you have the feeling that's the opposite feeling that people have now, because there are many people that do not deserve at all. What they do is meaningless. There are so many professions, so many functions and roles in society that could be eliminated and nobody would even notice it. And nevertheless, those sometimes are the ones that are well rewarded. And why? Because they have the purpose to serve, to make the system function in favor or the hierarchy, to keep the hierarchy, to keep to reinforce the power and the accumulation of wealth at the top of the social hierarchy. So whether they function to this, as part of the web of deception, for example, which is a very large industry, okay, public relations industry, media industry, mass media industry, infotainment industry, and all that. It's a huge. Don't we want to have culture and movies and this and that? Yeah, I think it's part of life. Should we have the kind of system which basically propaganda in large scale? It has been, as I said so many times, the major success of the American empire, imperialism, was the cultural imperialism. That was the most important tool. Culture, ideological and cultural, political and cultural, about the idea of the American dream and all the rest related to it. So we can always have excuses and try to cope with the system. That's what most of us do, because the helplessness phenomena makes us believe that there is no alternative. Tina. And we, instead of and we try by all means to survive and to thrive, even when we can see that all odds are against us, and that we can see around us the fabric of society falling apart. But we still believe in ourselves. That's again, we should also believe in ourselves to change the system. But it seems more commonsensical to believe in ourselves or to beat the system, which means to bypass the obstacles and try to survive and thrive. And of course, some of us will succeed, and that's why it's always very useful for the acolytes of the system to use those examples to claim that if these people, this example and that example, they could make it, they were able to succeed and to become part of the American dream, if the others are not, is their fault, which seems logical. Okay, but that's why we need also to understand that logic is not the same as truth or reason. Logic is just logic. That's why we need always to go beyond logic to understand reality, because in many cases it's not because it's a lie that there are examples, real examples of people that succeed, that made huge sacrifices and fight hard to become successful in a business or whatever they did with their lives, in a career, or but that doesn't mean that success could be reproduced in large scale. And why? Because, for example, you can have a good career as a soldier, all right? But there can only be a certain number of generals, or colonels. This is how a hierarchical system functions. The positions of power, the jobs, functions and roles more that get a better reward get lesser and lesser while they become scarce the higher we go in the hierarchy. That's how a pyramid scheme works, because it's supposed to be based on, again, meritocracy. It are supposed that the ones that achieve the top of the hierarchy are the best. And again, this is not true. Sometimes are the ones that have the more ability to serve the system, not to be not because they are the best, but they are the ones that it doesn't mean that they are not intelligent people, or they have not done anything above average. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to say. Just what I'm trying to say is we live in a system that uses recurrently the example of the exception to make us believe it is the rule, which is not, because the many, there will be always in a society, in a hierarchical society, most people will always be middle class or lower class, because there can never be private jets for everyone, and huge mansions and huge ranches and yachts and all the rest. That's the reality. This is the physical reality. This is the limits of the physical reality. So this is why it's the same with winning the lottery. It is possible that if we have a lottery ticket, there is the possibility to win it, but it's a very low probability. So this is how the reality works, and that's why we should not feel guilt or shame because of our social condition. Okay, because you are poor. Again, think that one of the reasons that you are poor is because is because the reality where you live, that goes by the name manufacture scarcity. That's where you are born. That's where we all are born, in a system of manufacture scarcity, because the commons have been enclosed, and because everything you need to survive has to be bought, and they make it seem as if it is moral, which is not. But as I said before, it is very easy to justify everything and to make, like Frederick Bastiat, that famous quote, when plunder, I always like to repeat it again and again because it makes a lot of sense. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group together in society, over the course of time, they will create a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. And that's exactly the point. We are manipulated by a system that glorifies exploitation, that glorifies that manufactures scarcity, and glorifies privatization, the private, as if private property is natural, when of course is a cultural and social and political construction. But it doesn't matter. What matters is what we believe, what we are made believe. That's what is the reality. And we learn that we need to pursue our own interests if we want to survive. We need to eliminate competition. We need to lie, to cheat, to steal. Do you remember Mike Pompeo? Yeah, that's not only the CIA learners, that this is the rule of society. That's what we need to understand. Why should we praise such a system? Why should we think that this is meritocratic? No, of course it is not. And it goes against the essence, the nature of the human condition, which is profoundly social. But it doesn't matter. Because what matters is the prevailing narratives that run in our subconscious mind and are responsible for how we perceive ourselves and perceive the world and build the relations with other people, and basically we are commodified beings and we live commodified relations. And that's our reality, and that's why we need to think about it. To think about what exactly do we what exactly should a society look like? Because there is nothing perfect. I'm not talking about a perfect society. I'm talking a more functional society, a more functional economy. And then that's exactly and that's why I mean, everything is important, race, gender, and all issues are important, and I do not minimize any issue. But if we go back in time, uh, we need. It is important to understand that class was the basis. Class and caste was the basis for the building blocks of the imperialistic civilizational paradigm. It is this division of labor. This is exactly division of labor, division of roles and functions. Which is not a problem if we do it in a very democratic way. The problem is that was used since the beginning to regulate a society, a hierarchized society. And again, for the glorification, which makes it exactly the point. This is always the point, where you have a legal system that authorizes it, but a moral code that glorifies it. And that moral code that glorifies it is cultural, okay? Is ideological, is where the role of religion, the role of narratives, the role to justify that order, that political order, that economic order, that societal order, there is the need to build, to use the narratives, the language framing that is used. It can also happen that it is not intentional, because in many societies that might have certain belief systems might have emerged spontaneously, which means that there was no intention that they were used for control, but they were part of the building of the cultural identity of that people, of community, okay, group, nation. But that is one, the natural part of it. The intentional part is when these groups perceive, or even a single person perceives the opportunity to have control over others. And usually these people do not mind to use the lives of others to transform others into tools, into useful idiots, cannon fodder, disposable peons, because they become tools for them to build power, to accumulate wealth, to gain control. And this is why we need to go through, to debunk, to deconstruct these mechanisms that use hierarchy, class and caste based societies for the accumulation of wealth, concentration of power, and control. And because usually these people are sociopaths or psychopaths, narcissistic, megalomaniac, opportunists. They don't have scruples. They will do whatever is necessary to achieve their goals, their objectives. They have their grandiose ideas, and they don't care. And this is why we can never have democracy based on this kind of system. And this is not a question of our free. We have freedoms. We do have freedoms. Nobody denies it. But also in any dictatorship, there are freedoms. People are free to. It is the ones that is exactly the problem. It is only the ones that defy, challenge the existing system that have problems. The other ones, if they comply, if they, if you are told to work 12 hours, 6 or 7 days a week, and only to survive, only to survive, if you comply with it, you don't have problems, And if you are made to, but for example, those who eventually are not able to produce, to have the productivity that is required, they might immediately have problems. Just because they eventually are not physically able, they will have problems. Okay? So it is always democracy. This managed democracy, which is the system where we live, liberal democracies, liberal capitalism, and these individual rights. These individual rights are exactly one of the tricks they use to tell all of us that these rights are guaranteed, okay, by the Constitution or by the legal system, the civil code. But it's a trick, because actually, as we all know, the law is not blind. The law is not equal. The law is full of loopholes to allow the rich, to allow the wealthy to get away with their crimes and many times when these big corporations and wealthy people are sentenced, it's just to be an example. That's what it is. It's not to really because the system is working. So, that's why the issue of class consciousness, and so many people avoid it because it's people don't want to be identified as communists, and this as if it is the absurdity is as if we are labeled as communists or even socialists is something that really is negative, that we need to avoid it because it's something that no, you should not be afraid of that. That's already our conditioning, our mind conditioning, our cultural conditioning and ideological conditioning is an example how it functions perfectly well. That you do not even allow yourself to talk about certain issues because they are taboo. You don't want to be identified as communist or socialist, because eventually many of the people that you believe tell you the truth in the alternative media, social media, and where elsewhere, they are always, many of them talk about the lefties, that you don't think that nothing of good can come from somebody that states that democracy is incompatible with class and caste-based societies, but this is, if we want to have an intellectual analysis, an honest intellectual analysis, it is actually pretty easy with historic facts, ancient and modern, to make it clear. That is why don't we have any agency? Why do we talk about elites? What is an elite? Where does belong the plutocrats and oligarchs, that the billionaires and those corporations and fintechs and all these companies, all these structures, transnational structures that have immense power and immense wealth? What do they represent? Do they represent a class? Why do they have power? And why? Because they do control stuff that might be virtual wealth or real wealth, real assets. Doesn't matter. Matters that they do control stuff and they control institutions, because it's a hierarchy, it's a class system, and it is incompatible with democracy. And either but what is the problem then? Does democracy matters? Is it important or not? The reason democracy is important, it's because if we want to have a society that really functions, that it's really functional and based on truth, trust and justice, it is a society that has less friction, has less need to use resources, to use violence and coercion to keep people in line. And there is a waste of resources and energy that basically in our societies to keep us poor, not to allow us. That's the role of austerity. It's not it's used as a social unequalizer. No, that's the function of the state. That the state should function as a social equalizer, but is functioning in the opposite way. Its function as to produce, to generate social inequality through political austerity. It's a political tool, austerity. It's not an economic measure. And there are so many examples. That's why we need to discuss it, because it is not supposed to be an authority, you know. There are many people discussing these issues, and but you know, nobody owns the truth. Nobody knows everything. That's why it's important that we unity and organize. We need to discuss it together. We need to generate synergies, to build fraternity, to understand that we have our lives, our work, our labor is not only used as to produce value for to produce profits for the bosses. Okay, it's also that our work is to pay for a system, a dysfunctional system that needs an apparatus and needs institutions and needs so many jobs just to make to allow a dysfunctional society to function, which means that we could perfectly have better lives, have more time for ourselves, have more joyful lives, meaningful and lives with purpose, if we would have a society that would be truly democratic. And we can have it, but we cannot have a class-based society, hierarchically oriented to serve a hierarchy. It's not because we cannot have different roles and different functions. That's not the case. We need that. We need organization. We might even need some sort of hierarchy, not a pyramid hierarchy, a vertical hierarchy, where the dictates, the orders, the marching orders always comes from above. And we are made believe that this is the only way that society functions. No, it is not. We can work in different ways. And then I'm not talking about anarchism, because I do not defend anarchism. I think we need a state. I think we need a government. And we need different, because in complex societies and very advanced societies as the ones we have, it's impossible. It would be impossible. What we do not need is this difference of power. We cannot. Democracy requires a distribution of power. That's it. We need to do it if we want to have true democracy, which means that we are not controlled by others. It has nothing to do with our freedoms, okay? Because as I said, we also enjoy freedoms, certain freedoms, every dictatorship, you enjoy certain freedoms. What I mean is that we are not controlled by others. It's because we are not going to pay, we are not going to suffer, to be punished because we are different, or we see things in a different way, or we want to discuss something that we find dishonest or inappropriate. And basically, to me, democracy is about not allowing the worst people amongst us to govern us. That's why we don't have a democracy. We are rewarding the worst people in many cases. It's not, again, I'm not saying that all people that are in positions of power are psychopaths or sociopaths or narcissistic and megalomaniac and all of that. But the trend exists. It exists in politics, it exists in economics, in business, in culture. So this is exactly the opposite. We are rewarding and calling merit to many things that actually do not have any. They are responsible for the humanization of the human species. And then there are lots of talks about many things that I will talk about it later, like the Antichrist and this and that. No, I know people that are antichrists. I don't know what even that really means, to be honest. What I mean by that is I want to talk about these ideas of antichrist and demons and this and that, and it has nothing to do with that. It's just people. That's the wrong people that we allow the system, this kind of society, and the imperialistic civilizational paradigm was because we allowed these societies, these hierarchical class-based societies, to become the norm. And we still see it as the norm. But it was not the norm for most of the existence of existence of humanity, and we do not need to accept it or take it as the norm because it's abnormal. It is an aberration, and we need to understand it as what it really is. Not always trying to hoping that it will change, because it's not going to change. It's going to have periods that seems to work out this, or even is working better for the common citizenry, the ordinary citizenry, but there will be that never lasts long, because the people in these psychopaths and sociopaths that are driven by power, they don't want to share anything. They want to concentrate as more wealth more wealth as possible. They want to control everything, and that's what is in front of our eyes. So if we don't see it, it's because we don't want to see it. But we should, because it's our lives. It's the lives of our posterity that are at stake. And it's even the human species. I would not say the life on Earth because it's very resilient. But it's even the human species that is at stake. Okay? So, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. I will be back soon.